And I think I'm the fastest person in that division. I do. I don't know anyone. I haven't seen anyone who's faster than me in that division. And it's crazy, man, because you talk about that power, and I've been working on that. That's kind of some of that's kind of mental too. And just sometimes it doesn't matter how good you feel the whole camp. It just matters how you feel, not even that day, but in that fucking moment, which is such a crazy thing. But
all right, let's do it. All right, Alex, let's jump right into it, man. February 12th, UFC 271, Renato Moicano. When the manager tossed you the name, man, what was your reaction?
Game, bro. I'm always game. I was excited for a challenge. The last fight was kind of a weird one just because Kraus being in the corner and the short notice. It was kind of like a reverse role of me and Dariush. But I felt kind of, I'm grateful for every win, but I felt kind of weird about it. And I also was expecting this other challenge. And so it was almost like this incomplete feeling. And then getting the opportunity to fight someone like Moicano, who was a top 5 in the 45 at one point and now up at 55. I mean, that's a real challenge. So that's pretty exciting.
Definitely. And let's talk about that last fight, man. You took on a newcomer after Santos pulled. First round knockout victory. Nobody hates a first round knockout victory. Anything you did not like about that performance?
No, man. I mean, yeah, like I said, you can't really knock it. I was happy to get out of there. I mean, yeah, job well done. I wasn't too upset about it.
Definitely. And did you party your dick off, that night or?
Yeah, unfortunately. Unfortunately. It's, yeah, maybe even like unnecessarily so, but we got out of the system and then got back to work. That's usually how I do it. I got to kind of hit that real high and then do a little, like a small amount of self-loathing and then get back on the horse and grind it out. So it was good.
How important is that, man? I remember I talked to Ortega after he lost to Max. Remember, he took that pretty bad beating from Max, and he said that he needed to just shut it down and just go out and just release everything because he had been training so hard for so long. And it helped him, man, because when he returned, he put on that clinic against the Korean Zombie. How important is it for you to just be able to like have a night or two of just like not even fight? Nothing is fighting. I'm just want to go out there and just party and just let loose and just be myself.
Yeah, I think I think the partying thing has a place. Like I'll only really cut up with that. Maybe a couple weeks after the fight. Not like partying regularly, but just kind of like partying more loosely, having a little bit more fun, like on the weekends, and then really after that, especially being out here at the altitude in Colorado, and Coach runs such a tight ship that like there's really not much leeway. Like me and my girl will go out for dinner and then like accidentally run into like a fool or two on like that we'll encounter like a buddy of mine and then like on occasion that'll turn into like some debaucherous night, but I can only afford like one of those like in the whole, like I can't do that. Like I can't have a weekend of that. It's just like one night. And I try to have, for the most part, I can't really manage it. And I don't like to, I really like to be like growing that whole time. So maybe like a few polite cocktails along the way, but nothing too crazy. More so like what I was being reminded of in this camp, it's not like taking breaks to party or even taking breaks to really drink at all, but it's just like taking breaks to just like take a break, like not taking it so seriously. We had the holidays and I think the fight was announced, I think during maybe before the holidays or during the holidays. And so there was a period where I went home and I was still training, but like I'd have like a couple cocktails at Christmas and things like that. And so when I got back, I was like, I really don't want to mess around with any of that. Like, I really just want to be like in complete monk mode and super, super professional. And I almost like, I already kind of hold myself to such a standard like that I can like overdo it really easily. And that was something I needed to get checked on. Was I was kind of going overboard where I was like putting too much on, I go train and then it's like a recovery. And it's like, okay, we need to do like some breath work or some cold water or some meditation. And then it was like almost defeating the purpose of doing it in the first place, because it was like, man, you're not even relaxing when you're doing this. It's so taxing, so scripted. I was being like a Poindexter about everything. So I need to like just chill the fuck out. Like it's like, man, put something on TV. Like it doesn't have to be everything has to be fight associated. Like you earned a little relaxation time. Turn on Netflix. Or when you breathe to relax. Don't breathe to like achieve a new like breath hold number because like you have to visualize the fight going a certain way. And so for me, it's more like chilling out even in like the midst of camp. Not even so much of just like getting shit faced on the weekend. It's the little things.
Yeah, everybody has their different ways of relaxing and kind of like letting loose. And
Yeah.
yeah, certain people go drink, some people do this, some people do that. But you gotta, I think
Yeah.
it's, you still need it, balance.
You just need, yeah, you need to relax. You need to relax, and then obviously when you're getting closer to the fight, you can't relax. At least you probably shouldn't relax with anything that's gonna like deprive the body or deprecate in any way. And so then it's more just like, okay, the simple things like decompressing with TV or something like that versus cocktails, just because you can't afford it as the fight gets close.
When you do take a break and not really train as much or go like say back home and when you get back to Colorado and that elevation, man, does it still affect you when you jump back in, the first couple of days or a week or so?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. It's nothing like the beginning, dude. Like the beginning, it took like a month and a half of just getting like fucked up before I was like, okay, I can finally like call this home and I've got it. Now when I leave and I come back, I get a nosebleed pretty easily. Like if I get punched in the nose or even if I'm going really hard, like sometimes a nosebleed will come, and it'll just happen like that first week back. But other than that, I'm pretty well acclimated to it. It's insane. Like the things I was able to get away with in San Antonio, like I could have late nights and go train hard, but like here, you just can't get away with it the same. So it's just it forces you to raise the bar and hold yourself to a higher standard.
Definitely. And Moicano, man, when you look at his resume at featherweight, it is phenomenal. His lightweight journey so far, he's had a decent run, 2-1, two rear naked choke finishes. What are your thoughts on his performances at 155?
He's solid. I credit him. He's game. He's solid. The 55 loss he had was against Pizev, which is looking like a fucking world beater right now. So that wasn't anything to take lightly, and they're having a good scrap at it too. But I just like to think, looking at him and looking at the tape, it's just not me standing across from him. And so the way that I move and the way that I'm approaching it, I've been working so hard to build this like this execution of blend where I'm blending between my striking and my grappling. Early on, I was kind of doing one or the other. And then truthfully, I kind of got this like hang up in my mind of gassing myself out from just going too hard. And it took time and like reps and even like just mileage here and even in the cage in Vegas to like get through that mentally and kind of find my feng shui. And I'm still figuring it out, but man, I think I'm at a place right now where like these last 3 fights I've been putting together with Factory X, like I'm finally doing the good things I could take from each one of those 3 fights. I'm finally putting it together, and I plan on putting down a display against Moicano. Just a good chain and transition of breaking him down and not letting him draw me in encounters or staying in one place for him to really go and work and really put him on his back and make him work on the ground. He's not really used to that kind of thing. So I just want to. That's going to be my threat. I'm not really the best at any one thing, but I believe I'm the best at blending I can be, and so that's the threat I'm planning on putting in play.
Well, you have that torque though. I mean, I think that makes you,
Yeah.
Special in your own unique way, where you could kind of bring that power from like a very short range. I mean, it's different from a lot of guys in that division.
Yeah. And I think I'm the fastest person in that division. I do. I don't know anyone. I haven't seen anyone who's faster than me in that division. And it's crazy, man, because you talk about that power and I've been working on that. That's kind of some of that's kind of mental too. And just sometimes it doesn't matter how good you feel the whole camp. It just matters how you feel, not even that day, but in that fucking moment, which is such a crazy thing. But all the times that I hadn't been able to hurt somebody, I knew I wasn't going to hurt them before the fight started. Like I couldn't feel it in my hands. It was like I was getting ready for the fight and I was like, all right, well, it's not there. Like I couldn't feel it mentally. I couldn't feel it physically. It's like I wasn't ready to fight that day. And I was like, okay, well, let's just go make do with what we got and try to make something happen. And that was like in the Moises fight. That was like in the Dober fight, where like I went in there and I was like, man, I don't have the crack today. I just like I can feel it. I don't have that pop in my hand. I'm just gonna have to try to make do and really fake the funk. And now I feel like, especially after that Moises fight, like I finally feel like a vet in the game, and I work so fucking hard, like on a weekly basis. Here in Factory X, we do some pretty serious sparring on Fridays, where it's a lot like a fight simulation, and the guys around the cage, and it's pretty serious business, especially for guys that come from out of the gym, coming in for their first time. It's really overwhelming, and the preparation into that, I really try to focus on like getting my intensity to the right level, so consistently I can be the guy I need to be. And especially suffering that disappointment against the Moises, where I was like, man, what the fuck was that? So feeling that kind of put this fire in me, where I'm like, I won't allow that to happen again. I won't not execute. So I feel good, going into this.
Do you feel like, that the consistency is more there than it was maybe 3 fights, 4 fights back? And about, this game is all about streaks. It's about like, okay, how many fights have you won in a row to get to a certain point, and then every fight after that is like championship level fights, contender fights. Do you feel like this is the next step for you, and this is the perfect opponent for that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, is like you said, dude, that the streaks are everything. That's what everyone looks at. We don't wager the O like they do in boxing, but we do value a streak. And for me, it was hard getting a streak, just having to grow up in the top 15. And so the streak was something that was just difficult. It was difficult. And now I finally feel like getting all these miles in a top caliber MMA gym with UFC guys every week, and then getting these more fight exposure, I finally feel like I'm developing even just a streak on my own, like just in my own mind. I'm finally developing consistency, like you said. And this fight, if you're talking about building a streak, generally people would like chip away at some easier markers. This is definitely a tall task for just building streaks, off of someone like Moicano. But man, that's what I've been doing, dude. I've been reaching for tall orders, filling in shoes that seem too big to fit in, and then I just end up, I end up running in those bitches because there's nothing else I can do. I got to make them fit. I got to make it work. So I like it, man. I like the challenge of it. I like having to raise the bar and like you said, build a streak off of a top touted guy like this. I like it.
Your last 2 victories, man, were first round knockouts. Do you see the same with Moicano?
Potentially, this fight could be anything like that because of the way that he. It just depends what style he brings to me. I absolutely can see a first round knockout, but I can also see me breaking him and pressing him for 3 rounds. So I don't want to say too much about it, but there's like a few fights that I can like picture it equating to, where I either have to fight a very calculated, smart fight for 3 rounds, or he gives me something to work with and I can take him out in 1.
I know the exact fight you're talking about, but I'm not gonna say that. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure
There's a couple. There's a couple. The way that you fight, the style that you bring.
Not even just regarding him. I'm thinking about other fights, matchups that I've seen where they'll probably emulate something like it, and. Yeah,
I see.
So it's just a matter of what kind of a fight he's bringing. Anytime guys bring the fight to me, I make it a fight. I make the most of it, and generally I run it to him and take him out. But a lot of the guys want to just play like a safe counter striking game against me because of the explosiveness and the speed. So
we'll see what happens. All right, a few fights, or a few more questions outside the fight. MMA fans, man, they are some of the wildest people online, offline, wherever you encounter them. What do fans obsess about too much that fighters don't care about?
Man, I've done such a good job of like weathering hate and fan storm that like I couldn't even tell you what the public interest is these days. I mean, I don't know. They kind of carry the same naivety that like just the general population carries. I mean, you just see like ignorance in a lot of the comments. I mean, I couldn't even tell you, man. I avoid those. I avoid those vortexes of information. I don't fall into them. So I don't even know what people are worrying about too much these days. I think. I don't know. I can tell you what they get into. I'm not sure what they stress about. I mean, what do you think?
Well, how fighters look on the scale, they get obsessed about that a lot, you know. And I think most fighters
Yeah.
really don't care. They're like, hey, the dude
Yeah,
just
and I
drained
thought that was
himself.
something they kind of did before, but I wasn't sure they were still doing that too heavily. That was actually one thing that kind of came to mind. Um, and I wonder about that too, because you don't always get a fair shake at it. Sometimes you think a guy looks pretty awful on the scale, then somehow they come through, and you kind of wonder how much fluid he had injected into his ass that evening, because a guy looking as bad as some of these guys look shouldn't be performing that way. So, and there is a lot that still happens. So it's like, um, people just love a hype train. That's it. And sometimes they can just be like shamelessly clouded by it.
Yeah, definitely. You're right, man. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I've been talking to a lot of fighters about this, and it's about PTSD, shell shock from like maybe bad weight cuts, or an injury or something. You know what I mean? Like maybe damage taken in a fight. Have you ever had PTSD from something and overcame it, or have you seen it around you?
Yeah, it's funny you said that. That was kind of like what I was referring to earlier. I just didn't say that, but yeah, I was thinking that PTSD is for me. It was essentially gassing myself out. I did in the Cerrone fight. I did in the Dober fight. And when I was fighting Moises, it was in the back of my mind the whole time. It was like I was so reluctant to shoot. I just wouldn't take the shot. And looking at the fight, it was like, dude, you look loaded to just blast this motherfucker. Like, you could blend into a takedown really well here. But I had this, like, hang up. I was, like, so trigger shy to commit, because it's like PTSD, which is like, I mean, man, there's nothing worse than just feeling like you have nothing, and then you have this just absolute killer across from you, breaking you, trying to break you across from you, and you're just doing everything you can to stay in it. And so I had like that shell shock of completely pouring out my tank over zealously, and then having to figure out a way to make it work, and the fear of not letting that happen again. And so that was something that I had to really work out in camp, of just like, you're not going to gas out. You're just going to be gritty, and you're going to push through. And somebody who kind of like really exemplifies that mindset is like someone like a Gaethje, who's just like, I'm just going to dog this shit no matter what. I remember whenever he was getting ready for the Ferguson fight, and he was like, I have like 15 minutes of hell in me for sure. And it was like off of like a very small camp or no camp at all. And he ended up being the full camp for the fight, but he was like, either way, I'm going to give this guy 15 minutes of hell, which is our normal fight. He was getting ready for a 25-minute fight. And I was like, man, it really is so much of a mindset. And again, what I was alluding to earlier, where it's always you versus you, truly. And you get in your way. Has been one time where I felt like I got defeated by an opponent. I felt like I just have a tremendous habit of defeating myself. And so, which I'm sure a lot of guys do, So that was, for me, it wasn't scared of getting hit. It was scared of gassing out, scared of going 2 in and gassing out, and then having to deal with the remainder. So that was the biggest hurdle I'd overcome.
All right, one last thing. Outside of fighting, good or bad, what usually keeps you up at night?
I mean, it doesn't even have to be good or bad, man. It's just like thinking of things too late. Something I used to do when I was younger, and sometimes I'll fall into it, but for different reasons. Like, I used to watch, sometimes I get a little anxious. I watch fights in the evening, and it's like, dude, you don't need to be watching fights at night. And so then I'd be just running through my head, and I'd be going around the house. I had a bob set up, and I'd just be fucking bob up, at like 2 a.m. in the morning, and just like, just start overthinking things. And I would, it was more of a fear-based, approach. But later on, I knew better. I stopped doing that. And then I get so excited about it that I would start watching fights again late at night. To me, I was like, oh, we're coming from a different place. You're not scared of anything. You're just excited. You're just, you just want to watch it. And I realized that wasn't good either. No matter what, I just couldn't put that in my head. I really need to decompress in the evening, so I'm not thinking about it. And so just letting the fight even begin in your head, because then it'll just start running. And it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It's just running. It's just energy being spent, right? And I also realized that there's nothing worth thinking about when you're tired, because it'll almost always be negative. You'll always kind of go into the wrong wormhole. So just kind of training myself to not overindulge in that.
All right, February 12th, UFC 271. You're back in Texas, man. All the best in the fight. And
Lone Star.
thank you so
Yeah.
much for the time, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.